Hello and welcome to the Redux simplified tutorial. And what we are going to cover in this episode is like what is Redux, then what Redux includes, that means the part of Redux, then comes implementation of simplest Redux. There is a myth that Redux is complicated, but I will make it simpler for you. Then comes creating Redux store with React.js. Then comes adding action and reducers to store. Then Redux dev tool, which is very useful tool for Redux developer. Then comes combining reducers. We will combine various reducers. Then comes the provider, then connect, then comes Redux Thunk to have async call, and finally the testing of action and reducers. So let's get started with what is Redux. Redux is a predictable state container for JavaScript apps. If you're not getting this, I can say like Redux is a place where you can have all your state of your JavaScript application. This Redux run in different environments like client side, server side, or maybe native. It is very important to have the server side implementation because when you are fetching pages from the server, that means server side rendering, all the data is pre-stored inside your Redux store. It's a very tiny 2 KB including every dependencies, so very fast. What's the problem without Redux? So suppose we have a root component like it's on React, then we have a 2 red child component and 4 green subchild component. Now suppose you need to pass some data from yellow to green. You need to pass it via red. The red component doesn't care about that data, it's just going through the red component. And similarly, if you need to pass data from green component to yellow component, you need to pass it via this red component. So red component doesn't need to care about passing prompts. So here comes our Redux. So with Redux, it's like a central store. Just like we have a store, the grocery store, where everything is available. User go there and purchase it. Simple. So we have a store of Redux, and what this Redux store include? It hold the state of your application. So every component can directly call for the state and data from the Redux store. Then comes structure of Redux. So structure of Redux is like Redux includes Redux store, which holds the state of your application or your project. It's a central store. Then this store includes action. That means inside the store, information comes from the actions, and actions are just a plain JavaScript object just like this. Then we have reducers. Now reducers are the normal function which get actions. So reducer get information from the action and then it will change the state or update the state. But to update real DOM of your application, you need to subscribe to that DOM part of your application. But there are a lot more things. So let's talk about a unique thing, which is the 3 principles of Redux. So first principle, it says Redux store is a single source of truth. The data of your application or the state of your application must be stored in one place, and that place is Redux store. So only the single source of truth. Then comes state is read only. You cannot directly change state, or we can say you cannot mutate state directly. So that's why you need reducer to make changes in your state, and reducers are just pure function. So now dive into the real coding part, and what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to create a new React application by using npx create React app, and I will call it Redux tutorial like this. So it is going to create the React application ready for us. And now our React application is done, and let's go inside this Redux and open this with VS Code. And VS Code is the editor I'm going to use. Let's make it bigger like this. And next, what I'm going to do, first thing is I'm going to say npm run start to start application on localhost 3000. So we can see our React application is running on localhost 3000. So let's again make it bigger. And what I'm going to do, the first thing is installing Redux. So I will say npm install Redux. So I'm going to install Redux. So while this is going to install, let's take a look on this directory structure. So on this React application, we have this source directory, and inside we have index.js, where we are registering our React DOM. That's very important thing. Then we are having this component called app, which is stored here, and this is the app component where we are getting all the logo, this text, and learn React. That's good. So on this index.js, and now Redux is installed. So here just make clear lines, and then first thing first, let's import create a store from Redux, because we already have installed Redux. So yeah, you can see it says 4.5 KB, so zipped 1.8K, and let's say const store is equal to create store, and this is a function, and simplest Redux store is ready. You can't believe it, but yes, Redux store is there. But let's see what problem we are going to face with. So let's go to Chrome, and here it says expected the reducer to be function. This means this create store except reducer, which is a function. So let's give it a reducer. So I will say here const reducer is, they want function, so we are giving function. So it's just a empty function and reducer, and that's it. You can see there is no error. That means our store is working absolutely fine. Now let's go and do something. So what this store includes. So first thing I will say console.log, and I will say store. So let's see what we are getting on this console. You can see we are having dispatch, get state, and replace reducer, subscribe, but we are interested in this get state. So let's call this. So I will say dot get state, and it's a function. So I will call it, and it says undefined, because now our application doesn't have any state. So how we can create some state? So here, instead of just returning empty object, I'm going to say name is Sarthak. So because we are going to return an object, we just need to say return. Okay, so now this time if I go there, and yeah, it is refreshed, and you can see on the console we are having our state. So reducer return state, this we get from here. So now we need to see how we can update the state. We know to update state, we need to dispatch action. If you don't know, let's see how we can create an action. So we just need to say store.dispatch, and action is always a plain JavaScript object with minimum two things. One is type. What is the type of this action? So action type, I will call it update underscore name, and then payload. Payload is like what the value we want to set. So I want to say bitfumes. Okay, so make sure this is always a capital. It's a good conventional to follow. And if I do this and then console log state, let's see what's going to happen. So we have dispatched the action. There is 2 times logging of the name, but both are same. What we have done wrong? So the point is, we have, yes, dispatched the action, but we are not taking care of this action on the reducer. So reducer, every reducer except 2 things, which is state and actions. So here I can simply say if actions dot type is equal to update name. Then I'm going to return payload. Instead of payload, I will say name is payload. Payload is always inside actions, so actions.payload. So let's just console log first actions. So let's see what's going to happen. So we have some interesting part. First, name is equal to Sarthak, coming because of the log on the 17th line. Then second, name is equal to Sarthak comes from 20th line log. But where this first Redux init came from? It is coming from this reducer. So as soon as we create the store, that create store call this reducer and log the action. And first time when the store is created, that is going to have the action of init. That means it initiate the state. So that's why we have this. So now let's see how we can update it. So I will say if action type is update name, then we just need to say that return action is equal to actions.payload. So yes, you can see it is updated. That's cool. And that's very nice how we can update things. But you know, we can destructure it like type and payload. In that way, we don't need to write action dot everywhere. So this is very easy to do. And you can see initially it was Sarthak, and after dispatching the action, it is becoming Bitfumes. So this is the simplest store, and I don't think it is so complicated. You just need to create the store, then create a reducer, create an action to call that reducer. Super easy things. But what if I also have one more reducer? So I will say const, and this time I will say game reducer, and I will call this reducer as person reducer. Now we can simply say update person instead of update name and use that here. And this time this reducer is a game reducer, and we know it accept state and then destructuring type and payload. And then we can say return an object of name is football. Super easy, but this creates problem. So if I change this create store passing person reducer, then what's going to happen? Let's see. You can see the state just have name. The state doesn't know about game reducer or game state. So how we can add this? We can only add one reducer at a time. So this is a good point to introduce you with the combined reducer. So what I'm going to say, I will say const all reducers is equal to combine reducers. This is a function you can get from Redux, just like create store, combine reducer, and then you need to pass in an object called game reducer and person reducer, and just pass all reducer instead of each and every reducer on this create store. So that's cool. And this time you can see state has two, game reducer, person reducer, but I don't think we need to call it reducer. So what we can say, like, it has to be game is coming from game reducer, and then person is coming from person reducer. So if I refresh, yeah, game is there and person is there. And because we have dispatched an action for updating the person name, so that's why we can see we have a different name on two places of this state. And next we saw that every reducer, yes, it get the action and we have destructured it, but also have the state. So we can return that state. So if we say state like this and save it, you can see we are having error. And this error is saying that person reducer doesn't return a valid thing. It return undefined when initializing. So what we can do, we can simply say initial value of the state is just an empty object. So if I do this, error is gone, and on this part, you can see person is having nothing, but after dispatching the action, yeah, we have this. So now let's do the same thing on this game reducer and initializing with empty object, and let's do one update part here, like type is equal to update game, then that has to be triple equal to and then return name as payload, and instead of this I'm going to say state like this, and this is going to work perfectly fine. Initially both have empty object, but after dispatching only for person it has bitfumes. But how we can add initial state here, because we don't know initial state when we are calling the game reducer. So here comes again create store. Before create store I'm going to say const initial states is going to have like game is having a name as football, and let's do like this so that it is more clear. Then person is having a name of Sarthak, and that's it. But we need to pass it on the create store as a second argument. So initial states are these things. So even we have defined that initial state is empty, but because after this we have initialized that these has to be the value of these states, so now we can see even after giving that we have this, and that is already updated. So super easy things to define initial states on our store. But you can see still now we are not doing any kind of React part, and all these things are just Redux. So let's make it more clear. We have two reducer, one store related things, these three, and one action. So I'm going to make dedicated directory for each and everything. So inside this source directory, I'm going to create a new store directory. Inside store, I'm going to create index.js. And let's move everything we have related to Redux there. So state, paste it here, and now just going to say export default store. So the store we have created here, we are just exporting as a default value, and then we just need to import store from store index. And let's just remove these lines, and if I comment this, go here, you can see we don't have any log, but as soon as I import store, go here, you can see we have these logs for our states. That's cool. So as I told you, we need to give everything as a dedicated directory. So let's create a person reducer file inside a reducer. So reducers is an directory or folder. Inside this I'm going to say person reducer.js. Similarly, let's create game reducer.js, and as you know, we need to cut these from here, paste it here, and let's export default our person reducer and close this line, close this file, and then game reducer will here, then export default game reducer, and let's import these two because we need them here. So I'm going to say import game reducer from reducer slash game reducer, because we are already on a store directory, so we just need to go inside this reducer. Similarly, we need to say import person reducer from reducer, then person reducer. Now everything is going to work absolutely fine as it was before. Let's do some more cleanup. We have these action, so let's create a dedicated action like this. So I'm just going to cut from here, and I will say const update person is going to this object, and then I'm going to pass that action here. So again, it is going to work absolutely fine. So you can see updated name. So this kind of things we can store in a folder called actions. So I will say actions, and inside action I'm going to create like person action, or actions actually, because there may be more than one action, and then move this action from here like this and paste it here. And we know we need to say export, then default, update person, and let's import that from here. So import update person from actions, then person action, and as before everything is working absolutely fine. So we are just constantly checking that we are not breaking anything. So let's remove these consoles and this also, and we never dispatch things on the store, so we just remove that from here, and we don't want this import here. So you can see it's so clean. We are just creating the store here by calling the all reducers, initializing states, and returning that, or default export. That's cool, and you can see it's very easy. Now let's implement some React related things, because till now everything is on console, but now let's go to app.js and let's remove everything inside this div. And I will simply say here inside h1 tag is like reducer tutorial, Redux tutorial, yeah, like this. So here we have, and we don't need this logo, so let's remove that logo. So next is I want to show the name of the person, so I will say person name is like store dot get state, and we know it is inside dot person dot name, and we need to import this store. So let's say import store from store / index, and let's see how it's going to work. You can see it's very easy. So let's do same thing for our game, and before that I will give a br tag to have a new line, and then I will say game name, and this time get state and game, that has to be game name, and yes, it is working. Now how we can update the name here? So let's do one thing. I will create a button. So button is like update person, and let's see, yeah, we have this button update person. So on this click event of update person, on click we are going to dispatch things. So store dot dispatch, and we need to dispatch an action of update name, or update person actually, person, and let's import this action. So import update person from store action person action, like this. So let's see, on click listener has to be function. Okay, so it says this has to be function, but this dispatch is not a function, it's just a plain object on the person action. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another function, and that function is like function update person, and here I will simply say I'm going to simply dispatching this. So I will cut from here and paste it here, and on click is an update person. So let's go here, refresh this page and click here. Nothing happened. So how we can debug this? As I told you, to debug Redux we have a Redux store. So you just need to install Redux Chrome extension. You just need to install it. After installing you will have this kind of tab. If you don't have, just restart your Chrome, you will get Redux. And if you go on this Redux, it says no store found, because we need to modify something, or we need to connect Redux dev tool to our Redux store. So let's go to this instructions, and on this instruction part we just need to copy this part. It's just saying that if we have the extension, then use that extension. And where we need to pass that? On the store. When we are creating the store, like here, create store, as a third argument, we need to pass that. So not this one. Copy it from here, paste it here. So now this will initialize our Redux dev tool. So let's go here, and you can see as soon as we have saved the file, it is now there. And now you can easily see the initial state. You know, this init, it just initialized this state. Initial states are here, we can simply see. And as soon as we click on person update, yes, our dispatch is working, action is working, reducer is working, and now we have this updated person is Bitfumes. So you can see on this Redux dev tool, you can check the difference between previous and current state. So click on diff, and it says person name is changed from Sarthak to Bitfumes. It is very easy. And which action has updated this? The type is update person, payload is update. You can trace things, test things, that these are very different kind of things. We are not going to cover it because now we want this Sarthak to be updated with the new value. Why it is not updated? Because now we need to subscribe our DOM or our application with this store. So I will simply say let render is equal to this thing. So let's see this how it is going to work, but this has to be a function actually. So like this, and now what I'm going to do, I'm going to say store dot subscribe to render, and because we always want this to run, so let's just run it. So we are saying, yeah, subscribe it and then run it. So let's see, is there any error? There is no error. So if I click on update person, and yes, you can see this is now updated. That means everything is working absolutely fine, and now our dispatch is working very easily. So similar to this, let's update the game. So let's copy this button from here and here. So update game, and let's call it game here also. We need to create another function like this and call it game and update game. This action we need to create. So let's create update person action to game action, and let's create a game actions file, game actions.js. Copy things from person action, paste it here. I will call it game like this, and make sure it is a capital letter. That's good. And game name is now cricket. Okay, so everything is fine. Now go here, update game, cricket, update person. Yeah, it's working absolutely fine. So this is the way you can have store on your application. But you know, there's some problem. It's not actually a problem, but not a good practice. So if I go on this reducers, so let's go to reducer, game reducer. We are using this if statement. This is not recommended. It is recommended to use switch statement, which is more clear. So I need to say, I'm going to check for type. If the type is update game, then return this payload. So like this. And because we are returning, we don't need break, and by default it's going to return simple state, which is our initial value. And same thing for person reducer. So let's say switch, and here again comes type update person, returning same thing, clear break, and return state. So let's clean these things. And now if I check, refresh this page, and yes, everything is working absolutely fine. And this is the way we do things. But again, even after that, we have something more to do. What we can do, this update game and this update person is a string. we can make some constant on the action, because in the action we are providing the type. So what we can do here, we can say export const, and const is update game is a update game. You will say how this is going to affect, because this is a constant. We can use this constant anywhere, and now we never have any typo or any kind of error. And if we change the name update game to check game or whatever it is, we don't have to make changes everywhere. So because we have exported this, we can simply import it on our game reducer. So I will simply say import, and now I will say update game from, and let's see, it's from, not form, from. We need to go upper directory, then actions, and then game action. And this time we can simply remove these quotes, and now it is going to again work absolutely fine. So update, yeah, everything is working. Similar to this, we can do same thing on person action, and similarly we can remove from here and like this. And on the person reducer, import person, update person from, go up directory, action, person action, and remove these things. So this is more general or the recommended way of doing things. So even after doing that, everything is working absolutely fine. That's the way of using Redux on your application. So we have seen that to update the DOM on this index.js, we are using this subscribe. But now it's time to install React Redux, which makes good connection between React and Redux. So I will say npm install React Redux and save it. So this is going to install React Redux. While this is installing, let's clean up things. So we don't want to subscribe this way, so let's remove that, and let's remove this from here, and let's just see it is going to install. And now React Redux is installed. So I'm going to call providers. So providers from React Redux, we are going to call it, and this is not actually providers, just a provider. And now I will wrap this app inside our provider. So provider is like this, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to pass as a prop this store, so like this. And by doing this, let's check whether our app is working absolutely fine or not. So refresh this page. These are here, but now it is not working. Although you can see on the Redux, we are dispatching, we are reducing things, but not updating the DOM. So how we can update the DOM? Now what we need to do, we need to open our app.js, and inside app.js, we need to use the connect higher order component. So like connect, and this is coming from our Redux. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say like here, import connect from React Redux, because it is going to connect React and Redux. So this is going to be like this kind of way, and by doing this, yes, we can do much more things. So even after doing that, it is not working, because now we need to pass something on our connect. So the connect accept the relation or the mapping of state and the prop. So we need to simply say const map state to props. This is a function which is holding the state, and let's return state, and let's pass this map state to prop as the parameter on this connect. So let's go refresh this page. Let's see, is it going to work? Yes, it is going to work, because now our state and the prop is connected. This means Now if I do one thing on this app, I will simply say log of props, and because it's a functional component we need to say props from here. And let's see, so you can see these props having dispatch, these props having game and the person. What this means, we can remove this store.getState from here like this and simply use person name, game name, but this is coming from the props. So props.person.name, props.game.name. Go here, refresh this page, and working absolutely fine. So you have everything here. So let's just remove this from here. So because we can simply return the state, we can return it like this way. So state.game and person is state.person. This is the more clear way of returning or mapping the state. So this means now everything is still working absolutely fine. Okay, so this is good, but what about this dispatching? Still we are using store.dispatch. Now comes the next thing as a next parameter on this connect, which is called map dispatch to props. I think you get the idea that we are going to map the dispatch part on this states. So this map dispatch to props is going to have a dispatch and is a function, and then I'm going to return all the dispatches. So first thing is we are going to dispatch update game, which is we are using here. So let's, instead of creating this functions, let's remove that from here, and now that function kind of thing I can return here. So update game is going to be a function which is going to dispatch and update game, and it's similar to doing these kind of things, but it is more clear on this connect way. So by doing this we can now use props.update game, and this means now it is working similar to previous. Okay, so same thing here, we need to say props.update person, and let's remove this from here and let's copy from there, and it's again a function which is going to dispatch update person. How easy is this to use it on our component? Now everything is going to work absolutely fine, and this means we are getting the warning that store is never used, and this exactly we want. We don't want to use store everywhere, so just remove that store from there, and now our application is so much detached from store directly but connected via this connect method. So this is a very easy way of connecting the React with Redux. So till now we are updating the state, but all these things are synchronous. So what if we want to have some async call? How we can handle these things? So for that I'm going to use a website called request.in or requestresponse.in. Here we are going to pass a request or a get request on this, and we will get the data like here. So how we can do all these things on our Redux store? So what I'm going to do here, firstly I'm going to say a br tag, and below that I will say users, and again a simple button which is going to say fetch users, and this is going to work because it is not so much difficult to do these things. Yeah, it's simple. So fetch users are there, and now let's initialize users like initial state. So I will say users is an empty object, but because we are doing this we get error on the console. It says users found in the previous state received by the reducer unexpected key, because on these reducers we have the game, we have the person, we don't have the reducer for user, and this initial state will actually combine to the reducers. So we know we can say users is user reducer, and let's create user reducer, and on this reducer.js. Let's copy from here and paste it here. So update, not person, update user. So like this, and let's say it is actually user reducer here, and we will see how this is going to work. But just to remove that error, we are doing all these things. So it's user reducer. Is it good? It says, yeah, we have some error. User reducer.js export is a different thing. Okay, so user reducer, but the problem is there is no update user from the person action. So user action we need to create, and let's create quickly user action.js export const of this thing. Oops, not like this. And then we need to say some kind of export default. We must have some export default, and like this, and we will see what will be the payload later, but it's like update user. We will change it if we want. So now everything is going to work. Yeah, there's no error. This is good. Okay, so we have initial users, which is empty array, and now what I'm going to do, let's use here, let's map it actually. So state.users, it has users, and now I will say inside this single curly braces, I will say props.users.length, if it is equal to 0, then I'm going to return just a p tag saying no user found. But if we have it, then I'm going to map it. So props.users.map, and I will say user, and returning p, and inside user.id. I'm just doing this for now. Let's see how it's going to look. So it says no user found because we don't have any user. Now fetching user from this. So how we can fetch? We need to call it. So whenever we click on this fetch user, so on click, we need to have a function or action called props is fetch users. So let's create a mapping of dispatch. So fetch user is going to dispatch, and dispatching is like fetch user. So fetch user action from our import fetch user from store action and then user action. So we need to create that fetch user. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply say const fetch user. This time it is not just a simple object. This time it is going to be a function which is holding dispatch here, and then I will use the fetch call. But let's just call it and see what the error we are getting. So yes, we know there is an error. So I will simply export this fetch user instead of update user, because that we need here. And let's go here and refresh this page. As soon as I click on this fetch users, we get error. It says action must be a plain object. But if you want to use an async actions, then use custom middleware. And here comes our Redux Thunk. So let's install Redux Thunk. So npm install Redux Thunk and save it. And now our Redux Thunk is installed. But how we can use that Redux Thunk? We just need to add this Redux Thunk on our store. So on the store index.js, we first need to create const middleware and middleware is using this Thunk, and it is already imported by auto import Thunk from Redux Thunk. And then what I'm going to do, I will just comment this out for now, or instead of commenting, I will store it somewhere else and comment it. And then I will say apply middleware. Again, this apply middleware is coming from Redux, auto imported once again. Then inside this, I can use spread operator to use this middleware. Yes, you can directly say Thunk here, but it is a good practice to use this kind of structure so that you can have a main constant where you will have all your middlewares. So this is going to work absolutely fine, and this time we can get rid of that error. If I click on a fetch user, we are not getting any error because now that Thunk middleware is taking care of the actions which are having like functional action, we can say this kind of functional action. That's very easy. Now we can simply use this fetch, and to use that fetch we can go to the request.in, copy that URL. Inside this I can simply say this and API/users. So API/users, then on the then part I can say response is equal to response.json, and like this, one more then, and this time response is equal to logging response.data. I know there is a data because if I go on the request.in, we can see we have this data. Okay, so let's click on this fetch user. As soon as I click, yeah, we can see we have 3 users. So now let's move all these 3 users into our Redux store. So now let's go, and how we can add, we need to dispatch an action once more. So dispatching an action inside the action. So I will say update user is a type. So type is update user, and our payload is response.data. So let's see what's going to happen. So if I go refresh this page, click on this fetch user, we have some problem. It says prop.users.map is not a function. We have some problem. So let's see on the Redux what's going to happen. Redux dev tool is not found. Why? Because on our store we have removed this code. Now how we can add this code to our create store? Now we need to use another method from the Redux which is called compose, and let's import it, or to import it from the Redux. And then we need to call firstly apply middleware, and second parameter we can pass this code like this. Let's go here, and yes, it is working, and now we have the initial state which is this. And as soon as I do fetch users, we have error because now this users having a name and then these things. Why is that? Because on the action we have is update user. Okay, so let's remove this code from there. So this is going to handled by user reducer. So go to user reducer, and here we can see we are taking care of this action type, but we are saying name is payload, but we don't want to give the name as payload. We want to give this directly payload because we know on the payload we have everything. So once more, if I click fetch users, yes, we can have, but again we can have this. So instead of doing this, we can just return payload. Last time fetch user, and this is going to work, and you can see we have this user ID, and in this user every user must have ID, email, first name, last name. So what I'm going to do here on app.js, instead of user ID as a string, I'm going to say user ID is going to fetch the user ID, real ID, then user dot first name, and then user dot email, and let's see the magic. So let's go here and click on fetch user. And you can see we have 3 users, but we have some problem on this username and we have no prop here. So let's see what's going to happen. So I think username is with underscore. Okay, so one thing we can correct, underscore, and we need to give the key to this p tag. So we will say key is actually user.id, because key has to be unique and every user must have user ID unique. So fetch user is working absolutely fine, and this is how we can use the async method on our React Redux store by using Redux Thunk. One thing is still remaining here. So suppose we have another thing like person name is this and email is sarthak@bitfumes.com. Okay, so let's see how we can update it. So now we have Redux DevTool. I will say update person. Yes, the person name is updated, and let's see the difference. Person name. Okay, name is Bitfumes, but where's the email? There's problem. So let's check the difference. So difference is like person name is updated, that's okay, but person email is removed from there. What happening here? This is because we are not updating the name. We are simply returning just the name and we are skipping the email. So let's go to the reducer of the person. So person reducer is here. Whenever we are saying update person, so instead of returning also email, we are just returning name. So we can simply say email is state.email, because this state holds the previous value. So now if I go and say person update, yes, it is updated, and checking the difference, and it says name is Bitfumes and email is this. So only name is changed, not the email. So on the difference, you can just say the name changed, not the email. But what if you have lots and lots of fields and then you just want to change only one field? If you have ID, then you need to say state.id. Instead of doing all these things, we just say object.assign and empty object. Then we will say which object we need to change or update. Then state is having name as payload. This is going to change on the state only that thing which is we have passed here. So let's go here and refresh this page. Yeah, we have the initial value of person as the name Sarthak, email sarthak@bitfumes.com, update person, and you can see name is updated only, email is same, and you can check the difference. Yeah, it is working absolutely fine. So this is the most important thing to remember, that you cannot directly change everything. You need to use object.assign to actually create a new object with updated value. And this is the most important point to be remembered for using Redux. So after doing all these things, it's very important to test your code. So now let's dive into testing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to install some of the testing environment or testing tool. Like first is I need Jest, then I need Babel Jest, and then I'm saving it as dev dependencies. So because we are already installing this Babel Jest, we need to create the Babel configuration file. So let's create a simple file. Let's just close everything here. We need to create it actually. So .babelrc, and here we just need to say presets is, and then coming an array, and here now say babel /preset env. So this is very easy. And next is on this package.json. Yes, we have Jest and Babel Jest, and also we need to change the test script. So in this test script, I need to say just Jest, or you can have another test like test:watch, and this is going to be npm test but with watch flag. So it's going to watch everything whenever there is a change. Okay, so what if I run the test? So I will say npm test watch. Let's see what's the result. Oops, npm run test watch. Okay, these are the commands we can use, and a to run all tests. So let's enter a, and now it's running the test. So on our project we have one test file which is app.test.js, and what's the result? It's failing because we are not using simple app component. It's a wrapper with a higher order component of connect like this. So that's why it's not working fine. So let's just actually delete this file. We don't need this. Okay, so what's the point next? Because we have this reducer and also we have the action, let's create a file to test our action. So I will create a file, and the file name is person.test.js. It's very easy, and let's just import person action from same directory of person action. In our person action we are having actually update person, not person action, update person. Okay, as well as we need to use that update person constant, and then here I am simply going to create the test, and test is like describe for actions. We will have a function and it says it should return the action for person. Then again it will have a function, and then I need to say const expected action is having a type, and type we know it's a type of update person, and payload is bitfumes. So this is the expected, and now let's really use the expect library. So expect library is saying like update person is equal to, so dot to equal of expected action. This one, this is not expected action, it's just expect. And now you can see this is passing. You can see one is passed. And now write a test for reducer. So I will create a new file, call it person-red or reducer, let's say .test.js, and here I'm going to import. So here we have a person reducer. So let's grab it. So person reducer from person reducer. So I will say describe reducer. I will say it should update person name only. This is very important. So now I am going to create another function here. So I will first say expect reducer. So I will say person reducer, and inside, because every person reducer need firstly the state, so I will call empty state. Then I will say the action, and action is like having a type of update person. So why not grab import update person from go up directory inside the action and person, not test, person actions. So type is update person and payload is bitfumes. So this has to be equal to, so to equal to, this is going to return name as bitfumes. Let's see. So as I save it, because npm test watch is running, it's now running and both are passing. That's very nice. But let's break this test. How we can break? So I'm going to say const initial state is equal to name is Sarthak and email is sarthak@bitfumes.com. Okay, and now let's pass this initial state. So I will say initial state here. Okay, so you can see one is failing. Why it is failing? Because this should also return email, which is we have not checked here. So now I need to say email is sarthak@bitfumes.com, and this time if I save it, but again it's not passing because we have a little problem with capital S and small s. So small s, using that small s here, and yeah, you can see both tests are passing. So this is the way you can actually test your reducer and the actions. Let's talk about some resources of the Redux, how you can learn more about Redux. Obviously, the most important thing is reduxjs.org website. So this is the official Redux website, and I think this is having a lot of content. You can have examples, you can have actually tutorials. So if you go to ecosystem, you will have lots of things here, and you can see learning resources. This is the collection of all the various resources like tutorials, blog posts, articles, everything is written here. You can learn deep dive into Redux if you want to have. So I think this makes your Redux easy, and if you want to learn more things related to Redux, React and anything, just email me, message me. I'm ready to help you and creating a video for you. If you like this episode, please share it with other friends. Please share it on other Redux React related website so that everyone get help and see how we can create the latest Redux and how we can combine Redux with latest React, because all other videos on the YouTube or other places are somewhat getting older. So that's why I have created this. So we will meet in some other episodes. Till then, goodbye.